What's going on, everyone? So I did a video talking about the San Antonio Spurs are shopping the 14th pick in the draft and talked about how maybe the Lakers could get involved in trying to trade for that, whether it's a direct trade with the San Antonio Spurs or maybe you're even working out a 3-team trade and get something done in that regard. Something that I said in that video that kind of was like, ooh, that might be a good talking point. This is just a fun conversational video, right? Just a fun discussion that kind of stemmed from something that I just kind of threw out randomly in a video. That is the potential of, would the San Antonio Spurs, who had interest in Austin Reaves, they were one of the teams that considered signing Austin Reaves. The only reason they didn't is because they didn't want to tie up the money when the Lakers were going to match him at, $13 million. Because at that time, that was the most they could get. Spurs could have offered him a max or something like that, but it's like, why tie up that money for no reason, right? When they could go and make other moves and other deals and whatnot, right? But they're a team that we've heard really wants or really wanted Austin Reaves. Now, maybe that has changed now that they got De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle, but there also is some sense to be made with an Austin Reaves because you can slot Austin Reaves right alongside a De'Aaron Fox and even a Stephon Castle. Why? Because both guys are stout defenders. Both guys have the athleticism to make up and mask Austin Reaves. Both guys have the ability to be those point of attack guys and defend the best player on the other teams rather than Austin Reaves having to do it with the Lakers. It's one thing when the Lakers have Luka Doncic and before that, D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reaves. It's another thing when you have De'Aaron Fox, who's one of the better guard defenders in the league, alongside another guy in Stephon Castle that can defend multiple positions, right? And he's got, 6'6", 6'7" size, right? Like you look at a team like the Spurs, like Austin Reaves makes more sense there. They also could use his playmaking. They could use his scoring. They could use some of his shooting, right? A lot of the things that would benefit that the Lakers, right, would benefit. I mean, you can make an argument even more San Antonio because they don't have a Luka Doncic. They don't have a LeBron James, right? De'Aaron Fox, yes, he's great, but he's more of that two guard, that combo guard now, more in the wake of like an SGA type than, a playmaking kind of versatile do whatever, where I think Austin Reaves, I do think still makes sense for a team like San Antonio. Again, team that was very interested in San Antonio. And the Lakers, they're not going to trade Austin Reaves for just anything, right? They're not going to trade him for the fun of it. However, would the Lakers trade him for, say, the number 2 as well as the number 14 pick? First off, obviously, would the Spurs do that? Right? Would the Spurs trade the number 2 pick and the number 14 pick for Austin Reaves? What is Austin Reaves' value on the market? I mean, obviously, it depends on who you ask. If you're a Laker hater, Austin Reaves isn't worth a second, right? If you're a Lakers lover and you love Austin Reaves, this number 2 pick and the 14th pick, that's not even worth it. You need 5 other firsts, right? You need a Giannis return. But realistically, I do think Austin Reaves is somewhere in the middle, right? I don't think he's a superstar, type of like top 5 player in the league, best team on a championship contender guy. But I do think he is a blue chip role guy, a guy that can be your best player on any given night, a guy that can be your second best player on any given night, and a guy that can really elevate that team. Now, granted, they didn't want to trade, or based on reports, don't necessarily want to trade the number 2 pick for Giannis, but they also don't want to give up Castle and everything else, right? Like they don't want to have to give the huge package in order to go and land a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they're also worried about his age, right? Because you'd have a shorter window with a guy like Giannis. Well, Austin Reaves is younger. You're not going to have to trade Castle and the 2nd pick and the 14th pick and, basically everything in the kitchen sink, right? You just essentially match salaries and give up the 2 pick or maybe even the 14th pick. You could land a Dylan Harper or like an Ace Bailey or something like that. I might even just do it for, if you got me like Harrison Barnes in the number 2 pick, I like, now you got another franchise guy, you got another like guy that you could put alongside again. And I know some people might think like, oh, San Antonio would never do that. But if they miss out on Kevin Durant and they miss out on a Giannis Antetokounmpo, or they choose not to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo, San Antonio wants to kind of expedite things here a little bit. They didn't go and trade for, 27, 28-year-old De'Aaron Fox all-star caliber point guard to not kind of expedite this a little bit, right? There are countless reports from the San Antonio side of things that are like, hey, we need, they want to kind of speed things up a little bit. Victor Wembanyama has even talked about how he wants to win sooner rather than later, right? And it's like, okay, well, if you miss out on a Kevin Durant, you miss out on these guys. Well, Austin Reaves is younger than all of those guys. He'd probably be cheaper than even a Kevin Durant, although you could argue you wouldn't have to give up 2 picks for Kevin Durant. But Austin Reaves is already proven, already established. He's as the second option, right? Like, so when LeBron doesn't play, he's averaging, I think it's 28, 6, and 8, right? So you're talking about a guy that, like, okay, and San Antonio would love to have that guy. You can have him play on ball. You can have him play off ball. You can slot alongside De'Aaron Fox. You can play in a backup role, right? Like, I do think that there is still a level of interest from a team like San Antonio where, yes, you could take a Dylan Harper, but what is he going to be, right? And how long are you going to develop him and go about that? Right, where Austin Reaves is already established. You already know what you get from him. You already know like what he can bring. You slot him into that 2 spot, right? He matches the timeline of De'Aaron Fox perfectly, right? So you have kind of De'Aaron Fox with Austin Reaves. All of Austin Reeves' flaws you can mask with Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, and De'Aaron Fox, right? So you're going to benefit from all of his pros, right? And his capability of being a self-creator and being able to get to the basket, operate in the mid-range and play on ball and play off ball and be a playmaker and help Wemby be a lob threat and, do all those things, right? Get to the foul line and, put the Spurs in a position, help close down the stretch, all that stuff. But also the defensive limitations, right? The concerns that we have as Laker fans of Austin Reaves, they would much better be able to mask those things because they have multiple guys that are athletic, versatile, and can defend out on the perimeter, but they lack that offensive production, right? Like the only guy that they have that can really self-create at a high level right now is De'Aaron Fox. Now, again, Stephon Castle may be able to be that at some point, and he showed some glimpses and some signs, towards the back end, especially when De'Aaron Fox missed out. Year 2 of Stephon Castle could be a very different thing, but he also can't shoot to the level that Austin Reaves can. And again, like it's going to take some time, take some growth, where Austin Reaves, again, is already established. And he'd come in and get to be, kind of play that role. But here's the thing. It's different when Austin Reaves is playing alongside a De'Aaron Fox and a Victor Wembanyama as opposed to LeBron James and Luka Doncic. Why? Because those 2 guys are going to have the ball in their hands at all times as the playmaker, as the facility. Like, it's different when the only other guy is De'Aaron Fox, right? And De'Aaron Fox can operate as a slasher and off-ball guy. So I do think it makes some sense for a Spurs team. I think Spurs would be the hardest sell. I think for the Lakers, which, as crazy as it sounds, I don't know if the Lakers would actually trade Austin Reaves for like the number 2 and 14th pick, but I do think it's something that you should do because, again, you'd get not only a foundation piece for now and the future, but you'd also get a guy that, theoretically speaking, isn't as proven as Austin Reaves, but can be that piece for now. And then if you're the Lakers, you could look to trade the 14th pick and maybe go get another piece, a more veteran piece that maybe makes some more sense, kind of wean in that guy. The other kind of downside, I guess, for the Lakers is the Lakers aren't really known as a team that develops, right? They're not really a team that's like, hey, let's draft this guy number 2, develop him really well, and that's our foundation piece for the foreseeable future, right? Lakers have a history of usually drafting those guys and then trading those guys for an Anthony Davis, a Luka Doncic type, right? Like that kind of thing. However, the Lakers really want to be an organization that starts, especially with the new CBA. They want to be an organization. They've really rounded out, hired a bunch of trainers and all this other stuff. You heard it last offseason that they want to be an organization that really develops, sets the tone, and sets the standard, right? We heard about all the Lakers pods and how they're, doing all this stuff. But like you look at the Lakers development guys, it's like Dalton Connect, who they're probably going to trade, but he's also 24, right? And then Bronny James. Outside of that, you don't really have anyone else. Yeah, you have a couple guys on 2-ways and stuff, but even those guys are, 24, 25. Where you look at a guy like, if you could get a Dylan Harper, right? For a team that's Spurs, they could look at it as like, yeah, we could get Dylan Harper, but we got to grow, develop him, right? He's probably coming off the bench for the first couple of years, where Austin Reaves, boom, immediately establishes, sets in, and can be that guy for us, right? Just, again, how much do the Spurs value Austin Reaves? Again, we know that they wanted Austin Reaves. We know that they had interest in Austin Reaves. We know that they were one of the teams that really heavily considered giving him a contract offer and then decided like, like we don't want to tie up the money. Because got to remember, he was restricted. You put that money in, it's on hold until the Lakers respond and make that offer. And it was like, what happens if we do overpay and the Lakers kind of let him go? And then it's like, now we're, because they weren't going to put in a $40 million offer. It didn't make sense at that time, right? And that was right when he was coming on the scene. Now he's had a little more time to be proven and whatnot. So again, I just think it depends on what do the Spurs really want? Because there are a lot of reports that the Spurs want to kind of speed this up. They don't want to jeopardize their future, but they want to kind of speed this up a little bit. Well, one way to do that is to get a guy that's already proven and established in Austin Reaves rather than a rookie they're going to have to grow and develop. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? If you would have thoughts, agree, disagree, kind of mix in the middle. How do you feel? Love to hear it down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.